Hello, friends. So, those of you that know me know that I am not a rainbow reader. In fact, I use that term all the time to say I am not a rainbow reader. I am like one of the slowest readers ever. And I just found out how to speed read and remember more of what I'm reading at the same time, and it blew my mind. Somebody told me, like, oh, you can learn to speed read in like 15 minutes. And I was like, no. And they told me these two tips, which I'm going to repeat. Okay. So, the first one is that I think this is the most important one. So I'm going to start with the one I think is most important first, not the one they told me first. But the first one is when you read, count out loud. It's not forever. It's just like to learn. So it's like literally do it 5 minutes one day, do it 5 minutes another day, and then you that like okay. So I'm going to read silently, but I'm going to count out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I probably don't need to count that fast. I'm excited, but I could count at a normal pace, and I'm going to read with my eyes, right? So at first, this is a little bit distracting because you're counting out loud, but like again, like you when you're not talking to somebody or whatever, and you're just counting to let your brain do something with your auditory system, and you're reading. The other thing, I don't know if you saw me doing this. The other thing is you just take your finger and you follow along with where you are reading. So you just like keep that. Okay, so at first, yeah, it might be awkward, for the first 5 minutes or so, but just do it one day, read and count out loud, and then, reread if you have to or whatever. But like read with the intent to get the information, but while you're counting out loud, and then follow with your finger. And then, like a day or two later, just do it again and just do it for like 5 minutes. And at the end of that, like after you sleep and let your brain do its thing, where when you do something new and your brain just, and then it's available to you the next day, um, then you can speed read. And the whole that all this is doing is you're just delinking. And for some of you, this won't make a difference because you already read this way anyway. But for those of us that were taught, like, first you read out loud and then they tell you read silently to yourself. But the point is to like cut out the reading part, like cut out the part of your brain that's engaged in the auditory process of like forming the words, and then suddenly you can read like 2 4 times faster. So and it takes a few minutes, but again, like only 10 minutes of actual practice, and then your brain gets the hang of it. It disengages the auditory part of the reading process from your brain, and then you're focused on pure visual. And like auditory, if I want to hear something that's 30 seconds long, the best I can do is like listen to it at 2x, and it takes me 15 seconds, right? But when you see information, you see all of the information all at once. Like when you look at a picture, you understand the picture immediately. You don't like look at each element of the picture, and like you don't read a picture. And so that's basically what you're doing. You're disengaging the auditory part of your brain, and then you're engaging the visual part of your brain to do visual process on the reading rather than doing visual to audio processing on the reading. So anyway, I did this and I've practiced it only twice, and I am reading like ridiculously fast, like I never thought I'd be able to. And I can remember just about everything that I read. Like I can remember as good as or better than normal. I think actually better because like I'm concentrated and I'm focusing more, like because I'm doing it so much on purpose. I think that I'm actually remembering better. And sometimes like because mostly you recognize words by like the shape of the word. Like people think that you read letter by letter, but especially when you're reading this way, you're just visually recognizing the word as kind of a word, not as letters. You're not sounding it out in your head or anything. So occasionally there's like there's a ton of phrases that the whole shape of the phrase, like you understand it immediately. I mean, you might not think of it that way, but like your brain's processing it. But then there's sometimes where there's stuff that's a little awkward. It's a new word you don't know or whatever. And in those cases, I do have to like slow down and like double check, like, is this a new word I don't know? And then like maybe sound it out in my head auditorially or whatever. But for the most part, I'm able to just skip the auditory process. And by, like I said, you start by you read and you count out loud at the same time, so you're disengaging the auditory part of your brain from the reading process and engaging just the visual processing, and then you use your finger to follow along, and this helps you maintain focus. And I think like once you practice it enough, yeah, obviously you don't need to count out loud anymore. And you'll notice when counting, because at first, like, counting will be pretty easy, like you'll be reading slow and you'll be counting slow, and as you start to pick up speed and you start to like focus and engage, you'll like skip numbers or something while counting because your brain is like really processing the information you're reading, and it's using like all of your brain power. Whereas before, reading at your normal speed, you can actually do two things at once because you're reading so slow. But once you engage that, you're really using your visual processing to process the reading. Then you'll start to like skip up on the numbers, and that's when you know that you've kind of like you've hit the level that you intended to be at, where you're reading quickly and you're focusing and you've got all of that mental energy focused on remembering what you're reading. So like I started, screwing up on numbers, and then I just started counting to 10, and then I just started counting to 3, and then I just stopped counting. And again, this was all a matter of like 5. Well, I guess I don't know. It's probably more than 10 minutes, but it was less than 20 minutes for sure. I read a chapter of this book, speed reading, and I didn't realize I could read that fast because I've always been a super slow reader. So anyway, I'm going to stop repeating myself. I hope that that is helpful to you. And, so if you are a slow reader like myself, those 2 tips, practice. Whoops, I got to go. Yep, I do got to go. Okay, so practice reading or counting out loud while you read, and then use your finger to follow along what you're reading. And it's okay if you need to go back and read something again, but like just practice it 1 or 2 times over a couple of days for 5 minutes, and you're good. So adios. I gotta do this thing,